What a joy it is to be back on Cricbuzz Chatter. Adam Collins with you and former Australian great Mike Hussey with me. First day of an Ashes series is always a special thing, Huss. And at the Gabba, England won the toss. They said, we'll have a bat, despite the fact the track looked a little bit juicy, despite the fact they have a very good seam attack, but they backed themselves in and they have misfired badly. All out for 147 in a little over 50 overs. Pat Cummins, St. Pat's Day, wasn't it? First day as Australian captain, 5 for 38. Quite outstanding. England had no response to him, nor did they. Mitchell Starc, who took a wicket with the first ball of the series, bowling Rory Burns, and Hazelwood was brilliant too with a couple of wickets between times. Huss, England were completely outmatched. It was shock and awe stuff.
Yeah, it was an amazing day of cricket, really. The toss was always going to be contentious. Interestingly enough, Pat Cummins, if he won the toss, was going to bat first as well. So it was one of those ones where it's a good toss to lose. I was actually standing next to Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne when the toss happened, and they were pretty happy to be bowling. So, yeah, the Aussies certainly made use of the conditions. It doesn't really matter if you batted first or bowled first, although there were bowler-friendly conditions. It's how well you use those conditions. And I thought the Australians bowled particularly well early. They looked to pitch the ball up as much as they could, looking for some swing and seam movement, and certainly got the rewards for that. Mitchell Starc, as you mentioned, he set the tone for Australia. A wicket off the very first ball. Unbelievable scenes. The crowd went wild. You know, at the start of an Ashes series, the build-up's always huge. The hype is massive, and that just certainly got all of the Australians and the Australian crowd going, that wicket of Mitchell Starc.
Let's drill down a bit on Mitchell Starc, your old teammate, your old mate. He has had, he's carried a lot of water for India beating Australia at the Gabba last year, and for Australia falling away at the back end of that series in both Sydney and in Brisbane. A number of people wanted to see him replaced for this test match by Jai Richardson from Western Australia, who's had such an impressive start to the Shield season. But they've backed Starc, and with that first ball, I mean, it boomeranged, didn't it? It was going down the leg side, and the ball tracker that you had on your television coverage, Huss, it moved such a long way to clip leg stump. I know that Burns was overcorrected to a certain extent with the way he's set up, but I mean, that's what Mitchell Starc does. He bowls full. At his best, he bowls full, he swings it, and he's on target. And that's what he was first ball.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, it sort of reminded us a little bit of the 2015 World Cup final against New Zealand when he knocked over Brendan McCullum very, very early there as well. So he's got that ability to bowl those sorts of deliveries. But you're right, with that new ball, when he gets it right, he can swing it, and he can swing it late. Rory Burns, if he had his time again, probably would have played it a lot better. But yeah, it was just perfect for Australia. And you're right, there was a lot of talk about Mitchell Starc's place in the team coming into the series. But I think the selectors have done the right thing. You know, they've backed him in. He's been a proven wicket taker over a long period of time. Plus, being a left armer, he just adds variety to that attack. And so that proved today as well. You know, I think the wicket of Josh Buttler that Mitchell Starc picked up was almost as important as setting the tone with that very first ball. Josh Buttler was threatening to get England back into the game by counter-punching, and I thought he played a really good innings, but he got a good delivery from Mitchell Starc as well. So he was important, as you mentioned, Paddy Cummins. Unbelievable first day as captain of the Australian team, but he was well supported also by Josh Hazelwood with the ball. He bowled particularly well early, and he also took a couple of great catches too. So I think all in all, the Australian attack will be very, very happy with the way they performed today.
Yeah. Butler batted in quite an enterprising fashion alongside Ollie Pope, who looks ready for the next step at this level, as might Haseeb Hameed, but he fell only 4 balls after the lunch break. We skipped over Joe Root being dismissed for naught. The reality is, Huss, is that Joe Root shouldn't be coming in at 2 for not many inside the first 20 minutes of a test match. David Malan playing at a ball that you just can't be playing at as a top order player at this level. That might speak a little bit to England's preparation, not just the fact that they were in hotel quarantine, but of course they had their tour game effectively washed out last week. And Malan, let's be realistic, he got himself back into this England test team on the back of 1 innings last year for his county, Yorkshire. Very little first-class form, and he does like to feel at it, which isn't a good combination at the Gabba when seamers of Australia's quality have got it nipping around early on morning one.
Yeah, it's difficult though. You know, the conditions were tough for batters. The ball was moving around a lot. And when you're coming from overseas into Australian conditions, it's difficult to adapt to the conditions really quickly, particularly with the lack of preparation that you talk about. And, you know, those guys, probably all of the English guys, are used to playing at the ball from playing in England conditions that, you know, that there's not as much bounce. and so you play at more deliveries because they will hit the stumps if you don't play at them. In Australia, and particularly at somewhere like the Gabba, you can let a lot more balls go, and you can let them go over the top of the stumps because you can trust the bounce and trust that it will get over the stumps comfortably. So I'm sure if Dawid Malan had his time again, he would have let that ball go. But it all happened so quickly, and there was seam movement there as well. He would have been used to playing those deliveries throughout his career. I think Dawid Malan's a good player, and we shouldn't be crucifying him for one innings. As I said, it was moving around quite a lot. He has actually had success in Australia before. He has made 100 on Australian soil in a test match, and I think he's a pretty well-organised player. Just tough conditions. A lot of the guys got pretty good balls, that's what happens in cricket sometimes.
Yeah, fair enough. I like Milan too. I think he's a good option at number 3. It's more just that lack of preparation, which means that after Root elected to bat first, he was exposing that top order to a brilliant Australian pace attack, which includes, of course, Josh Hazlewood. To Joe Root, he's got him out 8 times in Test cricket now. Root coming in early, gets a good one. He's had a phenomenal year. He's only 333 runs away from the most runs ever in a calendar year. But now the pressure will heap upon the England skipper. He's never reached 3 figures in Australia, and I'm not saying today was that kind of day, but in terms of putting the best foot forward on day one, now it's going to be about Joe Root digging into his mental reserves and finding a way to back up tomorrow in the field as leader, and then again in the second innings, because they are a long, long way behind in this Test match already, all out 147.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, it was a very, very good ball. He had to play. Josh Hazlewood got the length right. There was just enough movement to catch the outside edge there. I'm sure Joe Root will go home tonight. He'll have a think about it and think, well, you know what, I would have played the same shot to that ball, 100 times over. So he won't beat himself up too much. I'm sure he'll get over it pretty quickly. He'll understand that, you're right. He has to be in a positive frame of mind tomorrow and get England up and ready for the fight tomorrow. It's not going to be easy for Australia. There'll still be plenty of moisture in that pitch in the first session. But I think that the first 15 or 20 overs is going to be absolutely crucial for both teams. If Australia can get through that with little damage, then when the ball gets a bit older, as we saw with the likes of Butler being able to play a few shots, Ollie Pope, even, Chris Wokes towards the end, were able to play some more, attacking cricket shots. It does get better for batting. So England will need to make early inroads. They'll need to pick up wickets early. Otherwise, yes, you're right, they will be well behind in this Test match. But if they can get early wickets, I can assure you that they're not out of the Test match just yet. They could easily bowl Australia out for a score, maybe not too many ahead of what England were able to score today. So it's not all doom and gloom for England. Yes, it was definitely Australia's day, and they'll feel very good about their work today. But the first probably session tomorrow will be so important in the whole context of this game.
A little question about Patrick Cummins. I mean, Pat was quite forthright in the lead up to this Test match, saying that you took him personally under the wing when he entered the Test arena as a teenager a decade ago, and what a ride he's been on to the Australian captaincy now. 169 Test wickets at an average of 21.2. They're an astonishingly beautiful set of numbers, 5 for 38 today. But if you can just share a bit of insight as to the young man who came into your dressing room when you were a senior player, and the beautiful way that he's blossomed to the extent to which he's now the Australian captain, and what a fine first day in that job.
He's just a wonderful character and a great bloke to have around any team. You could see when he first came into the Australian team how much talent he had. Great ability, good pace, good control, but he always played with a smile on his face. And he also got that you need to be part of a team environment. He loves being around the team and fitting into a team environment and wanting to add it and enhance that team environment. And they're the sort of guys you want to have around the team as often as possible. So I just warmed to him straight away just because of his personality and his character. And unfortunately, he had quite a bit of injury trouble throughout the early part of his career, and he missed a lot of cricket. But in the last few years, he's been able to show great resilience with his body. He's still got those fantastic character traits. And I believe that's why people in the Australian setup and people at Cricket Australia were so happy to endorse him as the next Australian captain. I think leadership, part of it is on field and tactically, and he's got some good senior players around him to help with that. But part of it is how you lead the team off the field and the type of person you are. And I think especially in that area, he will be the perfect man for the job.
Now, I suppose the next obvious question is about workload management. There is so much made of fast bowlers being ill-equipped to be captain of Australia, despite the fact that many other countries have done it successfully. But the idea that as captain, of course, every day won't be all out 147 in 50 overs. Don't get me wrong. But do you think that Cummins has the presence of mind not to be in a situation where he might overbowl himself, which is kind of always the fear about a fast bowling captain?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm sure there'll be people around him just keeping him in check there. He's such a team guy. Even today, in the first session of play, he gave all his bowlers some sort of a bowl. Cameron Green came on for a couple of overs. Nathan Lyon come on just to get them into the game. So I think tactically he's pretty sound, and he'll bounce ideas off the likes of Steve Smith as well, and gets lots of advice from the think tank off on the other side of the ropes as well. So I'm sure he'll be looked after pretty well in that respect. I know Pat Cummins will want to play every Test match, and he'll manage his body in between tests very, very well, because these are the series you want to be involved in. So I think he'll be fine in that respect. I don't think he'll overbowl himself. I think he'll pick the right moments to inject himself into the game and try and make an impact.
All right, Huss, let's go into the hotspot. Okay, so selection. A lot of people want to know if you bring out two veteran fast bowlers and it's the first test of the series and it's at the Gabba and it's been under the covers for a couple of days. We've already kind of dealt with the toss, but let's deal with the Anderson Broad question. Can you believe that both of them are missing this test match in favour of being ready for Adelaide when so much often can hinge on the first test of an Ashes series? We've seen that repeatedly over the years.
Well, I must admit, I'm very surprised. That one or both of them aren't playing in this Test match. The conditions are perfect for their style of bowling. And their skill and experience, I think, would be invaluable throughout this Test match. I think England, you're coming into an Ashes series. You want to pick your best possible team. Now, there were some whispers that Jimmy Anderson is a little bit underdone. His calf is not 100%, or so they didn't want to risk him in this particular Test match. Okay, I understand, but Stuart Broad. Well, I don't know. I think he's there's been a lot made of his record against David Warner. He's got him out a lot. I don't buy into that argument as much, because he did get him out a lot in England and in English conditions with the Duke ball. In Australia, it's different ball, different conditions altogether. So I don't buy into that argument as much. But I think the conditions here in Brisbane, as you say, a green pitch, overhead conditions, I think they suited them both absolutely perfectly. Now, let's not to jump too early here. England still do have a pretty good seam attack, and we might be, beefing up the likes of Wokes, Robinson, Ben Stokes can obviously help out there as well. Mark Wood, we might be talking about how good they are, and maybe England have made the right call. So I'm not going to jump too early on it, but I must admit I was very, very surprised that both of them aren't playing this Test match. I think you go as hard as you can early. Pick your best possible bowlers for Queensland conditions where there could be some movement. Go again in Adelaide, and then you sort of can see how you go from there. They might potentially need a rest after that when you go onto the next Test matches. So, but I must admit I was a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I wonder the extent to which a second pink ball test, which will probably now be in either Melbourne or Tasmania, might have been a factor in that. And I agree with you, with Robinson, who's been an exceptional player at the start of his Test career and at first class level for a number of years. And Chris Wokes, who's very much at the peak of his powers. All the pressure will transfer onto them tomorrow. And for that, let's go fast forward. Inside the Australian camp tonight, of course, a lot of good questions will be asked, but how do they frame up tomorrow? Is it just a case of batting all day, or do they really try and punch the bruise and go out there and apply some scoreboard pressure with the run rate as well?
No, I don't think they'll be thinking too far ahead at this stage. They'll be wanting to bat as long as they possibly can, I think, in the first innings. But first and foremost, they need to pay attention to the first hour. It will not be easy. There'll still be plenty of movement there. I know England, they're skillful bowlers. They'll be looking to take some early wickets. I think they'll just try and break it down into little segments. Okay, let's win the first half an hour. Let's try and get through unscathed. Let's get through to drinks. Then, you work your way to lunch. I think that first session is going to be crucial for both teams. Australia will be looking to get through to lunch with as few wickets down as possible. If they can do that, then they'll look to push on from there when the conditions for batting should get a lot better. I wouldn't be saying to someone like David Warner, just go into your shell and try and survive. That's not the way he plays his best cricket, nor Marcus Harris for that matter. Still go out there and be positive, play your natural game. But I'd be surprised if they didn't try and let a lot of balls go early, particularly in that first half an hour. No, they'll be looking to bat big in the first innings, try and get as big a lead as possible. And then try and put some England under with that scoreboard pressure, under a lot of pressure. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a big day for both teams tomorrow.
Yes, sometimes batsmen can get the reputation as being nickers, and I suppose Marcus Harris and Travis Head have had that tag of sorts in their previous entries into the Australian team. But they've both been backed in heavily by the captain Patrick Cummins and the chief selector George Bailey. It's a massive day for those two left-handers, isn't it? Trying to make a spot their own.
Yeah, there's always a lot of pressure on a lot of the guys coming into any big series, and it doesn't get too much bigger than an Ashes series. So, as a player, you just want to get that first score under your belt, and more so, as you say, for probably Marcus Harris and Travis Head, just so you can relax into it and sort of feel, okay, the pressure's off a little bit, because you're right, they get a couple of low scores and suddenly all the talk's going to start again. Oh, do they swap Brink Khawaja in, or who else can come in for Marcus Harris? Do we look to change the team? And so you just don't need that extra pressure put on you. So they'll be definitely very, very keen to, make a bit of a statement first in that first innings. They'll have to work hard because the conditions will still be good for bowling. But they're good players. They've been in good touch. They've improved. And it is a nice feeling to know that you have got the backing of the selectors. So even if they did miss out tomorrow, I'm sure they'll still back them in for at least the first couple of test matches.
All right, Mike Hussey, thanks for your contributions tonight. Of course, you're in Brisbane. I'm in Melbourne. We'll be reunited together in Adelaide next week. We're doing it by remote because of the border bingo that we're playing with the various state governments at the moment. But you can follow us every single night of this 2021-2022 Ashes series on Cricbuzz Chatter. I'm Adam Collins. Can't wait to do it all again tomorrow. Good night from us.